Hello, and welcome to the refined sport of kings, a game known only as golf. For who other than a king could own the land necessary to run an entire golf game? I would be surprised for one. Personally, I'm not a fan of golf. After all, I will be your hostess and your queen, for I've already beaten this game tip to toe. And we're just going to see where this blubbering oaf will take us. I'll be honest. There is something to be said for a game that plays around with expectations, but there is also something to be said for a game that's all about novelty. That just ultimately tries to be too serious, and this does try to be too serious at some point. But for now, we get to enjoy golf. The sport of kings and large factories, apparently. You might have seen the early stuff where this game looked more like it was going to be nothing but a novelty variety hour. This game unfortunately insists on committing the cardinal sin of making a fun party game just a little too hard for its own good. The rules also change every single time. And not just a little bit either. Every level has 3 objectives. Usually there's the basic, a par. It really does go too far with par. The amount of par-based levels is a little much. Especially some of them where it is just downright frustrating to get par. This game has no... Like I said, it doesn't fully understand that its real appeal isn't... Well, you'll see. You will see. Whether you like it or not. Get a hole in 2. See, these are the fun ones, where it's just like, oh, do something fun and cute, and there aren't too many restrictions or anything. After all, the controls are... Let's just say that they're serviceable as long as you're not expected to do anything too precise. It's not a Mario game where you want to be doing anything more precise than a 2-block jump. After all, the controls, as you may notice, are mostly mouse-based. I imagine there's a WASD setup or something for controllers, but I wouldn't bother with such a thing. It is mostly relatively based on your ball, which is perfectly fine in a top-down environment, but I imagine you darlings are smart enough to figure out that that kind of loses its efficacy the second you have to deal with a sloped camera. Not to mention that with the awkwardness of some objects, certain par-based levels, which are already quite tight, become frustrating to deal with. Again, these are cute. Just cute. As you can see, every ball has its own rules. Later, we'll see the soccer ball, the super hot ball. There's plenty of them to go around. Some levels don't even use the ball at all. And here's our first par level. As you can see, you kind of have to feel things out. This is a fine par. It's cute. It's like, are you paying attention? And if you're not paying attention, I know what you're doing. Ah, yes! The flag I can so clearly see. There we are. Like, this is cute. Takes that fun novelty approach to things. Get a nice crown for our efforts. Here we have the nice 2D. Again, the controls work just fine in such a 2D environment, since there isn't too much to worry about for the most part. Some levels, even if they are par levels, do not use the entire level for its benefits. In this case, they really only use the one. The fact that they made a rope physics system just to facilitate a slight... Well, we do see this thing come back a few times, don't worry. The game isn't leaving us hanging on that one. Again, usually only one object has to make it, although some exceptions do exist. Not every level is made equal, I'm afraid. Just believe in chaos theory, dear, and everything comes all right. I don't know what that guy up there is up to, but he's being mighty disrespectful of my time. We're now going to be seeing a bit of a... recurring mechanic. The red ball. It comes up a few times. It's always quite a delight. A treat, if you wish. Now we are a gluey ball that sticks to surfaces. A part-time, Now, this is not one of the bad pars, I assure you. We have yet to see those. The problem here is that it wants a very specific set of interactions. And it does that old thing of accepting no substitutes. It gets a little worse when the level isn't quite as reliable. We'll call it reliable. See, some levels are very heavily based on physics, or the object is unreliable, and in that case getting par is... The polite term is a crapshoot. And I, as a woman of distinction, will use that term appropriately. Nothing more, nothing less. Oh, it's another par, is it? In this case, while we can totally try again, it just resets. As you may notice, the ball loses some of its speed. It is excruciating to deal with this. And it doesn't feel good when you're there either. It's just a sigh of relief as you're done with it. The blue ball should not be allowed to finish. As you can see, the balls will determine their direction according to the main cursor. So, it's very easy to split things up by aiming right down the middle. That is our treasure. Completing a level sends you back to the beginning, where we've unlocked one of two doors in Area 9. What we want to do, however, is that button. This is the collection area. Here we will see all of our lovely prizes, and, of course, our rewards. And times. These areas up here simply tell you how long it took you to get to that certain score. And that's all it does for you. That is the end of the game, if I recall correctly. What a game, what a game. It starts off so nice, doesn't it? We're couch trying to make it to a gulf. And then suddenly we have to contend with par again, because that's the most exciting and fun. I understand that parring is the primary element of a golf game, but I also need you to understand something else. It is by far the least interesting part of this game. Par is, as I mentioned, just a bit too demanding for how imprecise this game is. It is hard to make reliable shots, since unlike in most mini-golf games you see online, which were, by the way, quite the craze back in the day. Quite the craze for the employees behind their little desks and offices who were not doing their work. The point is, back in the day, mini-golf games were quite the thing. They were easy to make and easy to produce. This is not that. It's very difficult to tell where you're aiming, how you're getting there. And accuracy, precision, and repeatability are key to a game that prides itself on challenge. If a challenge is unfair, then the average person doesn't want to deal with it. You do not fail a par challenge until you have decided to stroke out, or... I see. There is a moderate... There is a really weird cooldown with that I just can't get my head around. What I am most frustrated by, however, isn't that. It's the fact that you have to wait 3 seconds, while you may have only taken 2 to... My goodness, the sheep. It might have taken you... This is annoying. Don't do that. Make it 1 second and then you're done, please. The fail screen isn't exactly without its merit. Without its waiting time for us to decide what we're going to do next. For the most part, the sheep levels are not too difficult. After all, unlike par challenges, you can be as imprecise as you want and compensate along the way, which is perfect. I don't know why we need to bring the DVD player with us. Perhaps it's a warranty thing? Have you taken care of your warranty information today, dears? It's important that you do. And so we meet up with what I like to call the explosive barrel mechanic. As later will be mostly done with via an explosive barrel. We can also release the button, allowing ourselves to explode wherever we so please, without touching anything. Although perhaps it just flies onward, it's unclear, it doesn't really matter. Again, if it's not based around precision. This is a different kind of movement, in which we continuously move in the direction we are holding. Binge. I appreciate that what breaks us is not any sense of physicality. It is purely whatever we touch a forbidden object. Although you can still shatter an impact with the ground, if I recall correctly. Ah, I see. Additionally, because of how the controls work out, you might have noticed it's easy for the ball to move slightly during motion and then go a whole different direction. It is as frustrating as it looks, and that is why I think some of these challenges overstay their welcome by too much of a margin for this game to be considered good. You might say, well, that's harsh. Dear, dear. You can't just claim that a game is that bad simply because of a few minor mistakes and mishaps. I tell you, I wouldn't be frustrated if it wasn't frustrating. And I was playing that on my own time, with all the time in the world, entertainment to keep me busy. And I still could not bear it. Especially when it's the early section that determines your success. It's like, oh, unless you get this first shot perfectly right, you might as well not bother, do you? This one is rather endearing in its own special way, although the launch is odd. I don't see why you go all sideways. This one is a strange one, to put it as blunt as possible. And yes, you do have to hold it. You have to hold your mouse button for this long, because that is something that people enjoy doing. It's not a click, it's point and hold. Dear, dear. Awful stuff. How quaint, the level persists. And of course, like a true professional, flip to right side up for your pleasure. You wouldn't want to be sitting on a sloped ceiling, would you? I wouldn't. Would get old very fast. Luckily, you only get taken to the treasure area the first time. The second time, it's all good under the hood, as they say. Next time, we will be moving on to World 8. Although, as I mentioned, there's now a teleporter here for us to enjoy our fine treasures. Although they do exactly nothing. So that's very exciting now, isn't it?